going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and yeah, we're going to talk about Collision again. I'm going to talk about it until I don't feel like talking about it anymore, like everything else on the channel. I did, obviously, the debut, obviously the return of CM Punk, and all that, and then I didn't do a review for the show that I was at in Toronto. But if you follow me on YouTube or Twitter, you'll get a bunch of pictures that I flooded from Collision, and on YouTube you'll see a bunch of video shorts of just various things, mostly entrances and whatnot, because I was on the floor of Scotiabank Arena for Collision last week before Forbidden Door, and that was where I, as I've said many times already, I got to sit on the floor of Scotiabank Arena and sing Judas. And if you guys have been paying attention at all, you know, coming out of COVID, what that particular bucket list thing meant to me. And the other thing, yes, I know it twists up a bunch of people's panties, but the other bucket list thing I got to check off was that I got to see CM Punk wrestle live twice. So, no, you didn't get a review from me last week. You're going to get one this week. They're still touring through Canada, and they're still doing the Owen Hart Cup, and they're still putting people that I would much rather see than on Dynamite on this show, are they not? So, it's not going to last forever. That's why it's not getting, for you, those of you on YouTube that follow my like individual categories, like I've got Off the Cuff, I've got Get Hyped, I've got WWE last week. I'm not going to make a category for this. These are all going to fall into the category of Off the Cuff just because, yeah, without warning, these are going to be gone one day as soon as I have something else to talk about. If you haven't, check out the other pod that I didn't think I was going to do this weekend, which is a standalone review of Money in the Bank. Was going to include it in next week's episode of WWE last week, but enough happened on that show. I don't care if you're an AEW fan or a WWE fan, but enough happened on that show that it warranted its own pod, and it ended up being like 45 minutes. So go check that out. Money in the Bank was a lot of fun. If you're not a WWE guy, that's cool. I'm not here to cause an argument for once, you know, in the tightest air quotes possible. But you can't deny that they did a lot this past Saturday, which is why I'm recording this late Sunday night and you guys are going to get it Monday morning, because this is when I got around to watching Collision. Collision started with one of the main things that was being advertised this week. It was the in-ring wrestling debut on Collision of our champion, MJF. MJF famously never wrestled on Rampage, which I think is really funny from a logistics point of view. I think from the kayfabe point of view, the idea that, yeah, I'm going to wrestle on the main show, I'm not going to wrestle on the secondary show. But the thing is that they always taped Rampage at the same, or very close to always taped Rampage after Dynamite. So he was already there. So every episode of Dynamite you watched, MJF was in the building. This, for him to say, oh, I'm going to go on the secondary show, means him going to an entirely different building, potentially on an entirely different night. So the combination of the kayfabe and the real-life logistical realities just makes it really, really funny. But because he's the champion, and because they're making him work 3 times this week. 3 times! The guy's working really hard. The guy works almost as hard as me. Anyways, but he's working 3 times, so he got to pick his own opponent. So it's a local jobber from Hamilton, Ontario. Now, shout out to Hamilton. I haven't been to Hamilton in ages. I used to have, through scouting and whatnot, I used to have a bunch of friends out in the Hamilton area. You guys know, or if you haven't picked it up by now, I'm just outside Toronto, Ontario, which is why most Toronto events I go to. I'm going to SmackDown. I'm putting this out there right now. I'm going to SmackDown at Scotiabank Arena in August. If anybody's going to that show, let me know. Hit me up in the DMs on Twitter, at Spaz Phoenix or whatever. I'm also, cheap plug, going to the Destiny Wrestling show at the Don Kolov Arena the next night. If you're going to that SmackDown show and you're within the sound of my voice, please take my recommendation. Please go to Summer Heat the next night at Destiny in Mississauga. It's going to be a fun show. There's only one match announced so far, and that's Destiny Women's Champion Jody Threat taking on Impact Knockouts champion Deonna Purrazzo. I don't know that that's being marketed as the main event, but I will say it's the only match that's been announced so far. The New Era champion Gabriel Fuerza will be there. The tag team champions that the name of which have just slipped my mind because I'm an asshole are going to be there, but there's no other matches announced at this particular point at 11:29 p.m. on Sunday as I'm recording this right now. But shout out to Hamilton. I used to hang out a lot out there. I used to have a big group of friends out there. It's a beautiful place. Regardless of why you're going there. It's a beautiful place. I've never been to the First Ontario Arena for anything, but it is what it is. MJF grabs a microphone after dispatching a jobber in like 2 minutes with a heat seeker and a label lock. So I don't know the significance of that. I don't know if they're planning on doing an MJF Bryan Danielson program when Bryan Danielson, gets back from his arm injury. That would be weird. They're both heels at the moment. Roddy. But he won with a label lock, and the jobber in the ring was a local guy from Hamilton, and he looked 20 pounds soaking wet with a brick in his pocket. MJF shits on Hamilton, shits on Canada, complains about having to work 3 nights this week, and puts out the Hamilton Open Challenge, which was answered by, and I'm not trying to say this to be mean, but it was answered by a random big fat guy. But behind that guy, whoever he is, he didn't even get a ring announcement, out storms Ethan Page. Now, I knew Ethan was from Ontario. I didn't know he was from Hamilton. Nice, cool little bit of trivia there. Ethan Page comes out, cuts this really, really pissed off, kind of babyface promo, which is weird right now because he's come from the Firm, which was a heel group. He's an obnoxious heel in his own right. He's under the wing of Matt Hardy right now, who's a babyface. So where he sits character-wise is kind of an up-in-the-air thing right now. But he cuts this sort of enraged, passionate babyface hometown promo about how much AEW means to him, how much he does for AEW, how they asked him to go forward to Calgary to promote the finals of the Owen Hart tournament, and he did that instead of going home to see his family. And his wife asked him, why do you do all this? When are they going to pay you back? So he's kind of venting towards the back and venting at MJF, who does none of that and gets all the plaudits and gets to pick when he shows up on shows and pick his opponents and whatnot. And he calls MJF the bare minimum bitch. He doesn't want to be on the level of the devil because he doesn't want to be a bare minimum bitch. MJF tosses his belt to the referee, considers this the answer to his Hamilton Open Challenge. And we have a match. We have an impromptu match. Now, for those of you out there that praise AEW for not having impromptu matches, let's just think. Chris Statlander, who we're going to talk about later on, won her title in an impromptu match. Nobody seems to care about that. Hook won back the FTW championship in an impromptu match. And this was an impromptu match. Ethan Page goes for the Ego's Edge quite early. It gets countered, and MJF, I want to say desperation, but we're like 10 seconds into the match, hits him with a chop block and goes crazy on the leg, working it in the ropes, working it around the post, doing more chop blocks, that weird sort of side slide elbow drop to the knee that basically everybody does, putting it in the ropes and sitting on it and whatnot. He goes for a long sequence, single leg crab, broken up, drag it back to the middle of the ring, single leg crab, drag him back into the middle. Commentary doing a great job to send a shout out to Lance Storm. I almost forgot his name, which is terrible. When they said MJF's trying to be serious for a minute, which was great. Let him out of the single leg crab just to hit him with a dirty looking knee breaker. Now, Ethan Page did get a flurry. Back to back to back, we got an iconoclasm, we got a snap slam, we got a twist of fate, which commentary said was a shout out to his new agent, Matt Hardy, which I liked, and a second rope power slam by Page where he sold the knee on the way down. Ego's Edge fails a second time, but he falls right into a heat seeker, and MJF gets the win. When he hit the heat seeker on him, I thought he was going to maybe go for the label lock again, like he did on the jobber, like that was some kind of message he was trying to send, or just go into the salt of the earth, as in, that guy was a jobber, this is what I actually have to do to beat a real opponent. They didn't do either of those. They just hit the heat seeker for the win. MJF got the win. Ethan Page, for a guy, and I'm going to say this later on in the show as well, for a guy that you knew wasn't going to win, this was a really cool, let me be a babyface for the night in my hometown match for MJF. For Ethan Page against MJF, and MJF is just fucking awesome. Rolling on from that, we've got the Owen Hart tournament. We've got 3 matches in the Owen Hart tournament tonight. As they tell us early on in the night, the main event is going to be Roderick Strong versus Samoa Joe with Punk on commentary, because the winner of Joe versus Strong is going to face Punk in the next round. Kind of telegraphed where it was going, but I don't mind that at all. Hobbs versus Dustin Rhodes. Now, I haven't had a whole lot of time to talk about QTV, which is lame as shit. Powerhouse Hobbs is one of those guys that I'm in an odd spot with as far as wrestlers go, because the guy's impressive as hell, and he's fun to watch in the ring. When it's announced that he's going to have a match, I look at that what do you want to say, that placard, that match graphic, and I think, okay, when I'm watching that match is going to be fun, because he's a fun destroyer to watch in the ring. Outside of that, I don't really care. It's kind of like, it's not in the same way, but it's kind of like the rare time that they put Jake Hager in singles matches. The guy's a wrecking ball. The guy's a powerhouse, no pun intended. And the guy's got, you know, the technical nous of being an amateur wrestler, and I guess he did MMA as well. They did that weird cage thing we don't need to talk about. So I'm watching this guy, knowing I'm going to have fun in the moment. He's going to say something about his hat in the case of Hager. He's going to do some fun technical stuff in the ring. He's going to squash some people around the ring. But at the end, I'm not going to care. And I have the same problem with Powerhouse Hobbs. Now, I can pull myself out of that, and I can say I know there's a lot of people that do like Powerhouse Hobbs, and I was really looking forward to this match, more so for those people. Because Dustin Rhodes, all the credit in the world to this guy. The fact that he's performing at the level that he's doing right now is absolutely amazing. I'm going to say that every time we happen to talk about Dustin Rhodes, but he's going to go in there as the respectable veteran that's always going to try and teach the new guys a lesson. Roddy Rah. And then he's going to be the old man that gets beaten down by the big guy, is he not? So it's mostly a beatdown for large portions of the match. Dustin obviously getting the crowd behind him. Dustin eats the post and gets busted open. If you ask me personally, I don't think that was necessarily necessary. But then we go through this weird thing that you get in a Dustin Rhodes match as well. Because Dustin Rhodes, as I said, can still do things that somebody of his, not his age as far as how long he's been alive on this planet, but his age as far as like how long he's been doing this gig, how long he's been wrestling, how long he's been, as Chris Jericho would say, throwing himself at the ground for a living. Because you just get back to back to back Crossroads, Pile Driver, Code Red. There's something else in the middle that clearly I didn't write down, but there is one more that I'm forgetting. A couple decent near falls, I will say, not any that put the result in any doubt. QT Marshall distracts, there's some bullshit on the outside, and Hobbs gets the eventual win with the second Powerhouse Power Slam. Now, here's the thing. For how they're trying to push Powerhouse Hobbs, and for the function that Dustin Rhodes serves at this point, A, he doesn't need backup. B, he doesn't need his backup to get involved to beat Dustin Rhodes. And C, it shouldn't have taken 2 of his finishers if you're trying to put that finisher over as a finisher. Because it's an awkward thing, because he uses the Spinebuster. And I mean, yes, I get it. He's the powerhouse. His Spinebuster is going to be better. I understand that. But if you're trying to put over a move as a finisher that other people use as a transitional move, then you better make it have the impact that they want it to have. So, didn't think it was necessary to have all the interference in there. Didn't think it was necessary for him to hit the finisher the second time. But all of that aside, all of that is minor nitpicky shit. Really good looking match. Really fun to watch match. Really engaging match, depending on who you're with and when you know what they're trying to do. As I say, I really hope they drop the QTV thing. I really hope they give me an excuse to give a shit about Powerhouse Hobbs, because I kind of feel bad that I don't. Miro is back, and Miro's new home is Collision. CM Punk later on in the night called the Collision fans Colliders, and I really like how corny that is. But Miro is going to be a fixture on Collision. He had one of those graphics that just says Miro in action next, so you know it's going to be a squash. And he's facing Anthony Henry. Who? You can't see me, but I'm putting my hands up in the air. I'm being the living embodiment of the shrug emoji. Apparently he's part of the Workhorsemen. I've seen the Workhorsemen in tag team matches maybe once. I think they were a lot on Dark and Dark Elevation. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Miro kills him. Miro, at one point hits the 10 beats of the Bowerin of Sheamus fame, which is a really cool thing because he's a big, thick dude, and if he's thumping down on your chest, it's gonna suck ass. He no-sells the minimal offense that Anthony Henry gets in. He hits the Avalanche, he hits the Uranagi, he hits a super kick, he hits the game over, and it is in fact game over. Yep, I did that. That was a thing for Anthony Henry. Miro gets the clear and obvious win. I'd love to see Miro versus Tomohiro Ishii. Have we had that? Like, just two big bowling balls going at each other. But yeah. Anyways, in the ring, after that match is over, because that didn't take up much time at all, and it was delightfully predictable, but I like Miro, so it's fine. Tony Schiavone calls out all 4 members of Bullet Club Gold, because obviously we saw the Gun Club, the Sons of Billy Gunn, join the Bullet Club Gold last week in Toronto, and they put the guns up and all that. They've got their gold shirts or whatever, and they talk about all kinds of shit. They talk about how Juice Robinson is facing Ricky Starks tonight in a match for the Owen Cup. He talks about how he welcomed the Guns to the Bullet Club, and the puns are instead of putting bullets in the gun, we put guns in the Bullet Club, which was a really lame thing that I put out last week on Twitter. But he calls them the Golden Guns, he calls them the top shelf guns, and they talk about why would they want to join Bullet Club Gold? Why would Bullet Club Gold want them to join? The Mutual Admiration Society stuff for sure. And Jay White grabs the microphone and does both of the things that I want Bullet Club Gold to do. White calls out CM Punk. He calls out CM Punk and the bag that he was carrying 2 weeks ago. And he says, if what's in that bag is your AEW championship, you better do yourself a favor and keep it in the bag, because you don't want to dangle gold in front of Bullet Club Gold. But in the meantime, and in between time, Jay and Juice have challenged FTR for the AEW Tag Team Championships. Now, we go to the Tron. It wasn't quite like a promo interruption, but we did throw to the Tron, where Ricky Starks is getting ready for his match. CM Punk is getting ready to commentate on that match, and FTR are just hanging around doing top guy things. Punk goes first, says, if you want an AEW championship, why don't you go the route of Max and get one from AEW shop? I liked that a whole lot. Then he basically threw to FTR, who accepted Jay's challenge for Jay and Juice to take them on for the titles, and he sort of did a reaching out thing, like, hey, Guns, we've given you all the credit in the world, but now you're trying to join the coolest club on the playground, which is kind of like a backhanded compliment, followed by a you made the wrong choice, followed by a you didn't need to do that because you're the team we were giving credit for not too long ago. But I think it's kind of cool that Bullet Club Gold welcome a tag team to their ranks, and the 2 singles guys in Bullet Club Gold are going for those titles instead of the tag team that they just recruited. I don't know how to feel about that, but Jay, it's announced, or it's made official later on that there's going to be an eliminator match next week. It's not a title shot, but it is an eliminator match. FTR taking on Jay and Juice, and obviously with it being an eliminator, if Jay and Juice win, they get a title shot later on down the line. This did a lot, but it also built towards, without really including MJF, it really kept the conversation going of who's the real champion, and it drove us forward towards CM Punk versus Jay White in a singles match. And I'm sorry, put that on All In or All Out, whichever one you want to do. I'm sure the arenas are big enough to keep the elite at the other end of the arena, because, oh my god, CM Punk has a job. We can do it. It's fine, and it'll be really, really good. Starks versus Juice in another match for the Owen Cup. This is where AEW kind of bugs me with their predictable things, because we know the stories that they like to play. The winner of this is going to take on Powerhouse Hobbs. Who has history with Powerhouse Hobbs? It's Ricky Starks. So you knew that Juice wasn't going to win. And we also kind of know that Juice is now in a tag team situation against FTR, as we just set up. But everybody's banned from ringside, as was announced by Tony Schiavone in the previous interview. Pretty standard match, although there's a lot of character work by both guys. I mean, Ricky Starks is just charismatic as hell, and Juice Robinson is kind of crazy in a way that I can really appreciate. The match kind of falters for a second, which is why I thought it was a botch. Juice drops down, and as he drops down, he sort of trips up Ricky Starks, who falls face first against the ropes, sort of like he curb stomped himself on the ropes, which was awkward, and it was one of those, oh my god, did they fuck that up? Did he fuck up his face? Whatever. Both men trade some shots in the middle of the ring once the match gets up and going again. Juice hits him with several, like, simple scoop body slams, but every time he scoop slammed him, he did it in such a way that his back was landing on the ring and his legs were always sort of battering up against the ropes, making it, again, just awkward. It's like when somebody hangs themselves up when they're falling backwards on, like, a pancake or something like that. But it was with the legs, and he did it continuously. So again, like the first match, you got a very, very simple story of let's get them all discombobulated first, and then let's work on the legs, because if you can't stand, you can't fight. There's a spear, there's a pinning reversal sequence, and Starks eventually does get the win. I mean, for one thing, he's got a previous history with Hobbs, and to revisit Team Taz in the next round, whenever that match is happening, which is next week. I wouldn't be surprised if they put Taz on commentary for that match, just because of the historical aspect of it. But yeah, also, even if they didn't have history, you're going to want to set up like a face versus a heel scenario, and Ricky Starks is really fucking over as a face, and if Hobbs squashes him, then he's going to get ridiculous heat, which is fine. Bullet Club, they don't really rush the ring again. They come down, and they're going to help their buddies because the match is over, so they're no longer banned from ringside. Punk and FTR make their way down as well, so nothing really happens. It's just the threat of something happening, and then that threat going off into the audience, into the distance. In the back, we once again have an announcer asking Christian Cage, hey, Luchasaurus won that TNT Championship, why is it over your shoulder? Well, because I, with my right hand of destruction, am the TNT Champion. And they're interrupted by Shawn Spears, who calls out Christian, calls out Luchasaurus, keeps looking over Christian's shoulder and calling Luchasaurus the champ. Christian Cage says, we're not going to give you a shot. The open challenge is over, and you're just quite simply not dangerous enough. And Shawn Spears comes back to him with a pretty decent comeback, which is nobody really knows how dangerous they can be until the right person comes along. And as he's saying it, he's fidgeting with Christian's collar just to fuck with him a little bit. And he says, Christian, I'll see you soon, and I'll see you soon, champ. Once again, looking over Christian's shoulder at Luchasaurus. Now, I don't think this would necessarily be a babyface term, but heel monster Luchasaurus could get sick of Christian's shit and chokeslam him and leave him and still be a bad guy. I kind of think that's going to happen at some point. But at some point before they leave Canada, which I think is in the next 2 weeks, because they're doing a wide swipe through Canada. I think they're ending in Calgary, obviously, for the Calgary Stampede, for the end of the Owen tournament, whatever. Before that sweep through Canada ends, I hope we get both. I hope we get Shawn Spears versus Christian, and I hope we get Shawn Spears going for the TNT title against Luchasaurus, because they never really know how to use him. And he's starting to feel a little bit like Kaz, where Kaz, they made him the Elite Hunter for like 2 weeks, and then they didn't know what to do with him anymore. The Open Challenge is continued with Chris Statlander versus Lady Frost. Now, really, really cool thing for me here on both sides of the coin. Now, I know Lady Frost has been doing some cool stuff in ROH, but I'm not buying Honor Club, guys. I'm sorry, I'm just not. I know that everything good I've heard about ROH has to do with what a good champion Athena has been, so I kind of feel bad that I'm not watching ROH, but I'm not going to buy Honor Club. I'm not going to pay to watch week-to-week wrestling. I'm sorry. No offense to the talent involved, because there is a lot of really good talent involved. The ROH portion of the Collision taping that I was at in Toronto was a lot of fun. Don't mistake me or take me wrong, but I'm just not going to do it. But the bigger thing for me is Lady Frost is somebody that I've had the opportunity to see up close and personal a lot of times at Destiny Wrestling, which you've heard me talk about quite a bit, which is where I'm going to sidetrack slightly to send a quick shout out to another Destiny alum in Alexia Nicole, who was on Dynamite last week, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Now, I know she was brought in to be an enhancement talent. She was brought in to be squashed by Ruby Soho, so Ruby Soho could then go on to cut her promo against Britt Baker, and she served her role in there. But I do hope that they pick her up. I really do. Just generically speaking, if my word means anything to you at all, it's kind of like when I came up here to tell you guys that Shotzi had been signed to NXT, and I had seen her in Destiny first as well. Alexia Nicole is fucking awesome, and she's had a lot of matches in Destiny that were a lot of fun because it was her, like, super tiny self taking on huge dudes. And, like, obviously, TV, you're not going to get the intergender stuff. I get it. We should, but it is what it is. Alexia Nicole is fucking class. And as much as I love seeing her in Destiny, I would love to see her get a platform full-time, AEW, WWE, NXT, ROH, wherever, because I think she genuinely deserves it. I'd love to see Impact pick her up. I'm pretty sure she's wrestled on Impact as well. I could be wrong. Somebody correct me down in the box below. But yeah, Lady Frost Wrestling here tonight gave me an opportunity to tell you that I've seen her a lot at Destiny, and shout out to Destiny, because like I said, Alexia Nicole is going to be on that show that I was talking about that's happening in Mississauga in August, where the main event, as far as I know right now anyway, is Jody Threat versus Gianna Purrazzo, champion versus champion. So if you're in the area, if you're in the GTA, or if you're in Mississauga specifically, go to Destiny Wrestling on Facebook and look for tickets for Summer Heat, because it's going to be a lot of fun. On the other side of the coin, you got Chris Statlander, who's fucking awesome. She's big fucking star energy. I love the American Sign Language thing that she's incorporated into her entrance. I don't personally. I'm not familiar with American Sign Language, and obviously I don't require American Sign Language. It's not for me, but I still think it's a fucking awesome thing that nobody else does. So she's reaching out to a portion of that audience that doesn't usually get a specific address, and I think that's really cool. But that aside, she's a fucking star, and she's a powerhouse, no pun intended to Hobbs, who we talked about earlier. We always talk about crossover matches, and I don't necessarily think I would put this at the head of any card, but if there was ever a moment to do any crossover between the two big companies, you can't tell me Chris Statlander versus Rhea Ripley wouldn't be an absolute ass-kicking match. Lady Frost is smaller, more agile, more acrobatic. She played that up in this match so that Statlander could be the powerhouse. It was an open challenge, which means it's one step away from just being an exhibition, so the win was never in any doubt. The Saturday Night Fever got the win for Chris Statlander. She looked great, and yeah, more Lady Frost on my TV, and like I say from last Wednesday, more Alexia Nicole on my TV screen. This was entirely a win for me, and it didn't feel like it was. I don't know how long it was. I don't time it. I'm not one of the weirdos that think, well, this match clocked in at only 4 minutes. Last week, the men got 10. I'm not one of those guys, but it didn't feel like this was chucked on at the last minute. It felt like a big part of the show. And Chris Statlander, unlike the previous title holder, is actually making that title look important. Oh, yes. I saw, a poll on Twitter saying, do you think Jade Cargill should leave wrestling? And I'm like, well, yeah, I do. I can't answer that honestly, because I'll get a bunch of ists attached to the end of my name, but she's terrible. So I don't know what you want me to say. Chris Statlander saved that belt. We thought it was going to be Taya Valkyrie, and that was a bait and switch for the returning Chris Statlander, who is a success story in her own right. So this is fucking awesome. In the back, we've got Andrade being interviewed about the weeks of problems that he has now had with the House of Black, and the fact that they now stole his mask, his superficial entrance mask. He's screaming down the lens at them, half in English, half in Spanish, demanding his mask back and whatever, and they show up on the screen next to him, taunting him, holding the mask, and Aleister Black tells him to be more tranquilo, which I really like. Andrade's going to grab two guys, and they're going to have some trios matches at some point. More Aleister Black on my screen, more Buddy Murphy on my screen, more Brody King on my screen, more Andrade on my screen. This is what Collision is giving. Look, you take out 4 guys, And look how many other people on a show now get to show what they can do. Punk comes out to commentary to a mixed reaction that people on Twitter exaggerated to a great degree to being a negative reaction. But, that's what fans do, especially tribal AEW fans. Joe versus Strong is your main event. It's the last first-round match of the Owen Hart Cup tournament. Obviously, the winner of this match is going to go on and face CM Punk. They were playing up the history between CM Punk and Samoa Joe on commentary. Kevin Kelly, Nigel McGuinness are still killing it on commentary, by the way. The addition of CM Punk was awesome because he was mostly just contributing to the conversation and throwing in a little bit of story here and there. He made sure to mention a couple of times that Samoa Joe's somebody he's never actually beaten, and you wouldn't hit that over the head so many times if you weren't going to have that match, I guess, round 4. I haven't seen the previous matches that they've had in ROH, because, like I said, I was never an ROH guy. All due respect to the wrestlers, again, it wasn't on my radar. Long story short for the match, I mean, what do you want me to tell you? It's Roderick Strong and Samoa Joe in the main event of a wrestling show in 2023. They beat the absolute shit out of each other. Roddy made a good showing of himself. Obviously, Samoa Joe, who's also still the ROH TV champion as well, so you got to factor that in when you talk about whether or not they're going to put a loss on him. Having ROH represented in the tournament, much like Athena, I'll jump ahead a little bit. Athena is facing Willow Nightingale next week on Collision for the women's Owen Hart Cup tournament. And I think doing something cool like the Owen Hart tournament and featuring your champions from your minor brand, because that's what ROH is, it's a minor brand, it's their NXT, get over it, is really cool. So to have Joe stick around in the tournament a bit longer is awesome. They beat the shit out of each other. The match was a lot of fun. CM Punk was a lot of fun on commentary because of course he was. And Joe will face Punk next week. Joe stared down CM Punk on commentary from across the ring. After the match, went to go grab himself a chair to start the hostilities. Early CM Punk got up and as well. Security came out, broke them up. There was no chair shot, but he throws the chair back in the ring and slams a semi-conscious Roderick Strong on it. And we leave the show with medics coming out to get Roderick Strong, with Adam Cole and CM Punk standing on either side of Roderick Strong. And I don't know how you get there. I don't know how you tell a story of Samoa Joe was so mad at you, CM Punk, that he injured my friend Roderick Strong. Therefore, me, Adam Cole, baby, is calling you out. I don't know how you get around that, because there's a lot of fast talking that has to happen to make that kind of match work. But, I mean, look what we're setting up for CM Punk. The guy that doesn't really matter, the guy that doesn't move, the guy that doesn't get anybody's attention, right? The guy that nobody really wanted to come back is now set up for matches against MJF, against Samoa Joe, against Jay White, and potentially against Adam Cole. Baby. Oh, yes. These are all matches that I would really like to see, by the way. I mean, if we lived in an entirely different world, WWE could have eventually given us Adam Cole versus CM Punk. WWE could have eventually given us CM Punk versus Samoa Joe. Could have eventually, I mean, the other one that's off way over here in the corner, but I definitely still do want to see it, is CM Punk versus Bryan Danielson. But MJF and Jay White are two guys that I want to see him fight with, but also Adam Cole, also Roderick Strong, also, eventually, hostilities will cease and CM Punk can show how much better he is than Kenny Omega. But we're not there yet. The Bucks and the Elite are still bitter and butthurt and upset that a human being has a job. Think about that for a second. Their biggest worry in life right now is that the guy that they treated like shit has a job. Think about that. They're upset that their fans are upset that CM Punk has his own show where he's only working with people that he likes. He's surrounding himself with his friends and not realizing that that's exactly what the Elite is on Dynamite. The hypocrisy drips down to the floor does it not? I really like Collision, if you can't tell. This was a lot of fun. Like I say, don't know how long the Collision reviews are going to last, don't know when something else is going to come along, but if you're enjoying them, well, I am doing them, please put it down in the box below, or throw me a message over on Twitter at Spaz Phoenix. I'd really appreciate it. But in the meantime, I've been Spaz, your YWC reality check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, time it out, guys. Bye.